I stared out the window, the late afternoon sunlight spilling over the New York skyline, painting the towering buildings in streaks of gold. The city never sleeps, and somehow, neither does my mind. Today could change everything. The email appeared on my screen. Subject: Promotion Candidate Notification. A smile flickered across my lips, but my eyes betrayed a hesitation, a weight pressing down on my chest. Promotion. I had been chosen after nearly 2 years of endless late nights, strategic planning, and proving myself at every turn. This moment should have been pure joy. But instinctively, I felt a chill crawling up my spine. Not doubt in myself. I've never questioned my ability. No, it was the people around me. The same faces that I'd shared coffee breaks, small laughs, and brainstorming sessions with, the same faces that could easily cheer for my success or quietly sabotage me in a heartbeat. My gut was screaming, "Watch out." I remembered my mother's words, clear as if she were standing right next to me. Prove your worth with your mind and your heart. Never let anyone else decide who you are. I had heard her say it 1,000 times in our tiny kitchen, the smell of fresh coffee and toast wrapping around us like a warm blanket. She taught me that truth, resilience, and integrity would always guide the way. But it's easier said than done, especially in a world where one careless click or a whispered lie could destroy everything. I stood and walked over to my desk, hand hovering over the mouse. Part of me wanted to open the email immediately, but another part held back, knowing the first move had to be deliberate, precise. I took a deep breath, steadying myself, letting my survival instincts kick in. Finally, I clicked. The first line popped up. "Congratulations, Ayla. You are our top candidate for the marketing director position." Sevens. I exhaled slowly, a small relief washing over me, but it was short-lived. My eyes drifted over to my coworkers. Karen, Marcus, names that could smile at my face while plotting against me behind it. I watched them chatting and laughing, casual as ever, but inside, I could feel the storm. Don't trust anyone. Not here. Not today. I glanced at the coffee cup still steaming beside my keyboard. The familiar aroma, the comfort of late-night work sessions, the scent of hope and ambition now carried a bitter undertone. I lifted the cup to my lips, sipping not for enjoyment, but to steady my racing thoughts, to calm the jitter in my hands. In that quiet moment, I told myself, being chosen doesn't mean winning. Everyone can try to throw stones in your path. One misstep, one hidden agenda, and all your hard work could vanish in an instant. I have to be ready. I have to stay sharp. I have to outsmart them. I remembered my first days in this company, walking in as a wide-eyed rookie, eager but unsure. I learned every tool, every strategy, every little trick to prove I deserved a seat at the table. And now, all those nights, all those sacrifices, all those moments of doubt, everything led to this moment. One misstep could undo it all. A single betrayal could destroy the path I had fought so hard to carve. A chill ran down my spine. I reached for the project files I had been safeguarding, the lifeblood of the campaign I'd poured 3 weeks of relentless work into. Morning until night, weekends sacrificed, friendships postponed, all to ensure perfection. I exhaled sharply, my fingers trembling slightly as I hovered over the keyboard. If they try to ruin me, do I have what it takes to fight back? I didn't answer immediately. I just stared at the screen, at the email, at the people around me, silently promising, "Let the truth speak for itself. My mind and my heart will guide me." I sat down and opened my notebook, jotting down notes. Step by step, I mapped out scenarios in my head. Who could turn against me? What traps might be waiting? And how I would hold my ground. I didn't know exactly what they were planning, but one thing was certain: I would not be defeated. Not today. Not ever. Another click, and I opened the email again, reading it line by line, like carving the words into my brain. Top candidate, marketing director, congratulations. My heartbeat was different now. Not fear, not doubt. Determination. I closed my eyes for a moment, inhaling deeply, whispering to myself, "Everything starts here. They can try to break me, but I will not fall. I will make my mother proud. I will win with my mind and my heart." Outside, the sunlight continued to stream through the windows, golden and relentless, reminding me that even a small light can cut through the darkness. I smiled faintly, taking a final sip of coffee, this time to fuel myself, to brace for the battle I knew was coming. I opened my notebook again, writing the first line of my plan. Sevens. Step 1. Observe. Step 2. Document. Step 3. Outplay them. Sevens. It was no longer just about a promotion. It was a test, a challenge to prove who I really was. And in that moment, I felt my heartbeat synchronize with the rhythm of New York itself, strong, relentless, unyielding. Today was not just another workday. Today marked the beginning of my fight, the first step to turning betrayal into triumph, doubt into power, and fear into fuel. I took one last look around the office, eyes locking briefly on Karen and Marcus, who laughed without a care. My lips curved into a small, almost imperceptible smile. Inside, I whispered, "They don't know what's coming. But I do, and I'm ready." The office felt different that morning. The air had this heavy, almost tangible tension, like the calm before a storm. I could feel it under my skin the second I stepped in, coffee in hand, notebook tucked under my arm, every muscle ready, every nerve alert. Something was off, though I couldn't yet put my finger on it. Karen was already at her desk, chatting casually with Marcus, the kind of laughter that sounds harmless if you don't know what's really underneath. I stopped for a second, pretending to scroll through emails, just observing. My pulse quickened. Something about the way she tilted her head, the subtle smirk when she looked at Marcus, it screamed mischief. A warning bell went off in my head. I knew better than to ignore it. Thanks for listening. Hit subscribe if this inspired you. I headed toward my own desk, carefully organizing my notes for the big client presentation. This project wasn't just any campaign. It was my chance to shine, the work I had poured my soul into, meticulously crafted over weeks. Every email drafted, every strategy mapped, every late-night brainstorming session, it all led here. And now, I could feel that invisible hand ready to sabotage it. "Oops," Karen's voice rang from across the room, casual, almost playful. "Looks like the file's gone." Sevens. I froze mid-step, staring at her. "Gone?" My voice was calm, but inside my chest, my heart was hammering. Every instinct screamed alert. This is it. The trap. The betrayal I'd been fearing. Marcus chuckled softly, leaning back in his chair. What a shame. Must have been a system glitch. Sevens. I could see the panic flicker in a few of the junior team members. Their eyes darted between Karen, Marcus, and me. Nobody wanted to get involved, but everyone could feel the tension. I clenched my jaw, forcing my breathing to stay steady. Not here. Not now. I thought of my mother again, her voice echoing in my mind. Keep your heart strong. Let your mind guide you, not fear. I silently repeated it under my breath, over and over. She had always taught me that the world will test you, especially those you trust the most. But strength isn't in avoiding the storm, it's in standing tall when the storm hits. I walked over to my laptop, fingers flying over the keys. I tried to pull up the project files, but the system refused to cooperate. Error messages popped up, mocking me in red text. File not found. Error. My stomach sank. Panic, real and sharp, tried to claw its way in. I slammed my hand lightly on the keyboard, and all I could do was take a deep breath, forcing my brain to stay sharp. I thought back to every late night I'd spent perfecting this project, every personal sacrifice I had made. I'd given up weekends, social nights, time with friends, all for this opportunity. And now, someone I had trusted, someone I laughed with, someone I shared the small victories with, was trying to destroy it in a heartbeat. I didn't have time to cry. I didn't have time to let my panic show. This was the moment that would define me. I needed proof. I needed control. I retreated to my notebook, jotting down every irregularity I noticed, every suspicious glance, every two-timed comment. I didn't know exactly what they were planning yet, but I could feel the strategy forming, sharp and deliberate. I wrote, Step 1, document. Step 2, protect. Step 3, expose. Sevens. Hours passed like minutes as I worked, my focus razor sharp. Karen and Marcus continued their act, smiling, chatting, laughing. But I saw through it all. Every move was calculated, every casual word a potential weapon. I observed their every expression, every shift in posture, every glance exchanged. Nothing escaped me. At one point, I caught Marcus flicking a glance at the backup server terminal, fingers poised as if ready to make another mistake. My stomach tightened. They thought I wouldn't notice. They thought I'd crumble under pressure. They underestimated me, and that was their first mistake. I looked around the office. Nobody dared meet my eyes. Everyone sensed the tension, the unspoken war in the air. And I realized, in that instant, that this was more than just a project. This was a test of survival, of intellect, of heart. Could I keep my calm while chaos swirled around me? Could I turn their sabotage into my advantage? I took another sip of coffee, feeling the warmth steady my shaking hands. I whispered to myself, I will not let them break me. I will not let fear win. My mother believed in me. My work is worth more than their petty schemes. The morning stretched into early afternoon, the sunlight shifting, casting long shadows across the office floor. I could see the faint outlines of tension in every movement. Karen's smirk had softened, just a little, as if she sensed I wasn't just an easy target. Marcus's chuckle grew nervous, slipping into a fake bravado that failed to mask his anxiety. I smiled faintly. They had no idea I was already 3 steps ahead. By late afternoon, the first cracks in their sabotage began to show. Small mistakes, subtle slips, emails sent to the wrong person, files mismanaged, a comment let slip that contradicted their own story. My pulse quickened, not with fear, but with vindication. I was watching them unravel without lifting a finger, simply by staying vigilant, documenting everything, and remaining calm. Still, I couldn't relax. Not yet. This was only the beginning. Every second, every interaction could tip the scales. One wrong move from me, one miscalculation, and all my preparation could crumble. But I wasn't going to let that happen. Not today. Not ever. I leaned back in my chair, closing my eyes for just a moment, letting the hum of the office fade. I pictured my mother, smiling, proud, unwavering. Her words filled me with strength. You have to fight smart, not just hard. Let your mind guide your heart, and no one can touch your worth. Opening my eyes, I felt a surge of determination. I wasn't just surviving, I was preparing to outsmart them. Every glance, every word, every move would be recorded in my memory, cataloged for the moment I needed it most. And when that moment came, I would not hesitate. Today, the office was a battlefield, and I was ready to fight. I stayed late that night, the hum of the office dimming around me as I sat alone under the harsh glow of the fluorescent lights, my laptop open, files scattered, and my coffee long gone cold. But I couldn't leave, not yet, not when the stakes were higher than ever, because I knew in my gut that the sabotage wasn't an accident. It was intentional, and if I didn't find the truth, everything I had worked for, every late night, every strategic decision, every ounce of myself poured into this campaign, would vanish in a heartbeat. So I leaned closer to the screen, scrolling through logs, emails, timestamps, cross-referencing every tiny detail, my fingers trembling slightly, my heart hammering, adrenaline mixing with the fear and the burning need to expose whoever thought they could destroy me without consequence. And as I sifted through the digital traces, I found it, a pattern, subtle but undeniable. Anomalies in the file access, deleted drafts that I had personally saved, emails rerouted, little breadcrumbs that screamed sabotage. And in that moment, a chill ran down my spine because I realized that the people I had trusted, the ones I laughed with, the ones I shared victories with, had tried to pull the rug right from under me, but I wasn't going to let them. No, I wasn't going to let them see me crumble, not when I had my mother's voice in my head reminding me, Ayla, always let your mind and heart guide you, never your fear. And I whispered it under my breath, over and over, grounding myself, letting it steal my resolve while the office sat in silence around me, shadows stretching long as the night grew darker outside, the city lights flickering through the windows like a reminder that even in the dark, you could still see truth if you looked hard enough. And I did look. Every detail, every signature, every tiny manipulation, I cataloged in my notebook, writing like my life depended on it, because in a way, it did. Because my career, my dignity, my chance to prove I was more than just a name on a list, all depended on what I discovered tonight. And as I pieced it together, the realization hit me like a punch to the chest. They had coordinated this, meticulously, trying to make me fail, trying to make me doubt myself, trying to erase my work, my worth. But I was sharper, faster, and more determined than they knew. And I could see the game clearly now, the moves they had made, the lies they had whispered, the gaps they had tried to exploit. And I wasn't just going to fight back. I was going to win in a way that would leave no room for doubt, because the truth had a weight all its own. And when you held it, you held power. And I was about to grab it with both hands. I took a deep breath, letting my mind clear, focusing on the digital breadcrumbs, the email headers, the timestamps, each one a piece of the puzzle, each one a small victory in itself. And as I traced the path, I realized that this wasn't just about proving who was at fault. It was about proving to myself that I could see the storm coming and navigate it without losing myself. and my fingers moved faster across the keyboard, opening backups, restoring versions, checking server logs, documenting everything meticulously, knowing that when I had this all together, there would be no denying it, no room for lies, no way for anyone to spin it against me. And as I worked, exhaustion tried to creep in, the clock inching past midnight, but I refused to let it cloud my mind because I could feel it, that electric sense of impending confrontation, that tingle in the back of my neck that told me I was on the verge of uncovering something that would change everything. Every now and then, I paused, staring at the faint glow of the city outside, letting my eyes trace the jagged skyline, imagining my mother's proud smile, the way she had always told me, "Stand tall, Ayla, even when the world tries to push you down." And I held that thought close, a shield against the creeping doubt, because doubt would only make me slower, less precise, and this had to be flawless. Every move, every observation, every piece of evidence accounted for, and slowly, carefully, methodically, I built my case, reconstructing the sabotage step by step, watching patterns emerge like a map of betrayal. And the anger that bubbled inside me was tempered by strategy, because I wasn't just angry, I was smart, and that made me dangerous. And every keystroke, every scribbled note in my notebook, every carefully labeled screenshot was a declaration. I see you. I see what you did. And it won't work. Not on me. Hours passed, the office empty except for me, the hum of the servers filling the silence, the occasional flicker of a monitor, and I didn't move. I didn't look away. I didn't let my focus break, because in that quiet, I had found clarity, and clarity gave me power, and power was exactly what I needed to turn this situation around, because I was not a victim. I was a strategist. I was a fighter. I was someone who refused to let their ambition be stolen by cowardice. And as the clock edged toward the early hours of the morning, I finally leaned back, eyes heavy but sharp, taking in the full picture of what had been done, every deceit laid bare, every manipulation cataloged. And I felt a strange thrill, because now I had leverage. Now I had the ammunition to confront them, to expose them, to take back what was rightfully mine, and more than that, to prove to myself that I was capable of seeing through the lies, navigating the deception, and emerging victorious. I closed my notebook, stretched my tired fingers, and whispered softly to myself, "They thought they could break me. They thought I wouldn't notice. They were wrong. I see everything. I know everything. And I'm ready." Sevens. Then, just as I was about to log off for a brief rest, my phone buzzed. It was a message from one of the junior assistants. "Ayla, something weird happened with Karen's file. You might want to check this." My eyes narrowed, my heart thumped in my chest, and I felt that surge of adrenaline again, the mix of fear, anticipation, and excitement that comes just before a showdown. And I knew in that moment that the next day, the confrontation wouldn't just be about evidence. It would be about strategy, timing, and the ability to turn betrayal into triumph. And as I packed my things for a quick coffee refill, I could feel the weight of what was coming, the electricity of impending justice, the thrill of finally seeing the truth unfold. I walked to the small kitchenette, pouring another cup of coffee, and as I sipped, I looked out at the city lights, thinking about my mother again, about all the lessons she had taught me, about pride, about integrity, about never letting anyone dim your light. And I whispered under my breath, "Tomorrow, they're going to see what I'm made of. Tomorrow, truth wins. Tomorrow, I win." And in that moment, the fear that had tried to creep in hours ago was gone, replaced by something sharper, fiercer, unstoppable, the resolve of a woman who had seen the storm coming, who had traced every step of the betrayal, and who was now ready to take it all apart, piece by piece, until victory was hers. The city outside sparkled in the night, oblivious to the quiet war waging inside, but I didn't need anyone to notice. I didn't need validation. I had the proof. I had the clarity. I had the heart and mind my mother had raised me to wield. And as I leaned over my notebook one last time, reviewing every single piece of evidence, I felt the electric thrill of anticipation, the intoxicating mix of fear and power, and I knew, deep down, that the next move, my move, would change everything, because I was ready, and nothing, and no one, could stop me now. I couldn't let them see me break. Not now. Not ever. The office was quiet, but my mind was loud, roaring with every calculation, every possibility, every scenario I could play out. And the moment I realized that the sabotage was coordinated, deliberate, that's when I knew it wasn't enough to just survive. I had to fight back in a way that would leave them stunned, and my pulse surged. A mix of fear, adrenaline, and the kind of fire only betrayal can ignite. And I whispered under my breath, they thought they could bury me. They thought I'd crumble. They were wrong, because I wasn't just angry, I was focused, laser sharp, and in that moment, the world outside the office faded away, leaving only me, my plan, and the knowledge that every move I made from here on out would determine not just the outcome of this promotion, but the kind of woman I was, the kind of legacy I would carry, and the kind of pride my mother had always instilled in me, that relentless, unshakable pride, and I felt it surge in my chest like lightning. I started by retracing every step of the project, documenting every anomaly, every deleted draft, every misrouted email, until the pattern was undeniable, clear as day, a map of their deception. And with each piece of evidence, my confidence grew, because I could see the cracks forming in their facade, and I realized that my advantage wasn't just the evidence, it was timing, it was precision. It was knowing exactly how to expose them without giving them a single chance to recover. And I began drafting a plan, not just a plan to prove them wrong, but a plan to turn their betrayal into my triumph, a plan that would make every deceit, every whisper, every backhanded move they'd made backfire spectacularly, because that was the power of foresight, and I had it now, sharp and unyielding. I organized my notes, highlighted key moments, cross-referenced all communications, and built a timeline that mapped out the sabotage like a crime scene, every fingerprint, every footprint, every misstep cataloged. And as I did, a strange thrill ran through me, that intoxicating blend of fear, anticipation, and the sheer exhilaration of being in control, because control was the only thing that mattered now, and I could feel the electricity of the plan forming, every detail meticulously calculated, every move anticipating their next. And I whispered again, I see you, I know you, and I'm ready to show the world who I am. 7s. I reached out subtly, sending innocuous emails to the junior team, planting seeds, observing reactions, testing loyalties, all while maintaining the calm exterior of someone busy with work, someone focused, someone unaware, but inside, every second was a chess move, every glance a calculation, every casual conversation a probe, and I could see the tension ripple through the office as my subtle maneuvers began to unsettle Karen and Marcus, the ones who thought they had me cornered. And the thrill of that, the heady, intoxicating thrill, made my pulse race even faster, because they had underestimated me, as they always do. I spent the next few hours constructing my narrative, anticipating objections, rehearsing my presentation, every word, every inflection, every pause, crafted to strike exactly where it needed to. And as I rehearsed in the empty office, whispering to myself, testing different tones, different approaches, I could almost hear their reactions, the shock, the disbelief, the slow realization that their carefully orchestrated sabotage had been anticipated, outmaneuvered, exposed. And that realization filled me with a fierce, uncontainable satisfaction, because justice, when executed with precision, is one of the sweetest victories a person can taste. I also planned contingencies, because I knew these weren't amateurs. They were cunning, calculating, and ruthless, but I had studied their patterns, their tendencies, their weaknesses, and I built a web of options, every possibility accounted for, every escape route blocked. And in that strategy, I found calm, the kind of calm that only comes when you know you are fully prepared, when you have every angle covered, when the storm is coming and you are the one holding the lightning rod. By the time the clock crept toward the early morning hours, the city outside a quiet canvas of lights and shadows, I had a plan that was tight, precise, and impossible to counter. And I leaned back in my chair, fingers tracing the edge of my notebook, and felt a rush of exhilaration, that electric thrill that comes from knowing you are about to turn the tables, that feeling of power, sharp and focused, that only betrayal, anticipation, and preparation together can create. And I whispered softly, they wanted to break me. They wanted to erase me. But tomorrow, everything changes. Tomorrow, I strike. Sevens. I reviewed every email, every document, every tiny piece of evidence, until my head ached, until exhaustion gnawed at the edges of my focus, but I couldn't stop. Not now. Not when the culmination of weeks of preparation, strategy, and relentless determination was at hand, because I knew that if I faltered even slightly, all the work, all the evidence, all the late nights would be meaningless, and failure wasn't an option. Not for me, not for the woman I had fought to become, not for the legacy my mother had instilled in me, that legacy of strength, pride, and relentless perseverance. And so I pressed on, reviewing and refining, tightening every detail until my plan was flawless, until the strategy was so sharp it could slice through deceit like a knife through silk. And I felt that electric, intoxicating mix of fear, anticipation, and pure, unadulterated power, because I knew I was ready, and tomorrow I would show them. As dawn began to break, painting the city in streaks of gold and amber, I stood at the window, coffee in hand, eyes scanning the skyline, heart pounding with a mixture of exhaustion and exhilaration, because the plan was ready, the evidence was solid, and the next move was mine to make. And in that moment, I felt invincible, unstoppable, a force that had been tempered by betrayal, sharpened by adversity, and fueled by pride, because I was Ayla, and I would not just survive this, I would win, spectacularly, and with every ounce of poise, intellect, and heart I possessed. And I whispered one final time before stepping into the battlefield of the office. They thought they could bury me. Tomorrow, they see who really wins. Sevens. I walked into the conference room at exactly 9:03 Heart pounding, palms slightly sweaty, every step echoing with the weight of the moment, because today was no ordinary morning. It was the culmination of weeks of strategy, investigation, and silent observation. And as I took my seat at the long mahogany table, the hum of the fluorescent lights above mixing with the faint murmur of early arrivals, I caught Karen and Marcus exchanging the kind of glance that only people who know they're about to be exposed can give, that micro-expression of panic disguised under forced smiles. And I felt a rush of adrenaline, sharp and intoxicating, because I knew the game was about to change, and I whispered under my breath, "They tried to steal everything from me. Today, they'll see what happens when you underestimate me." And the words settled in my chest like a promise, steadying my nerves even as my heart raced like a drum. The CEO walked in at 9:15 exactly, clipboard in hand, his presence filling the room with authority, and I met his gaze steadily, feeling the weight of every expectation, every judgment, every silent question about whether I was ready, and I reminded myself again of my mother's words, clear as day. "Prove your worth with your mind and your heart. Ayla. Let no one else define your value." I took a deep breath, letting it anchor me, letting it turn my nervous energy into focus, and when the first slide of the presentation flickered onto the screen, I felt the electric thrill of anticipation surge through me, because I wasn't just presenting a project, I was presenting evidence, strategy, and truth, all wrapped together in a way that would leave no room for doubt. Karen opened the discussion, her voice smooth, casual. "Ayla, why don't you walk us through the campaign results?" Her tone was light, but her eyes were sharp, predatory, and I could feel the tension rippling through the room, the air thick with expectation and unspoken challenges, and I smiled slightly because I had been waiting for this, every detail rehearsed, every angle accounted for, and I said firmly, "Absolutely. Let's start with the performance metrics from the last 6 weeks. 7. I clicked to the first slide. 6, 432 new leads generated, 43% increase in engagement, 21% conversion improvement, numbers that were irrefutable, undeniable, a testament to the work I had poured my soul into, and I walked them through the strategy, step by step, campaign by campaign, every success highlighted, every challenge explained, and I watched as eyebrows raised, heads tilted, subtle nods appearing, and even Karen's smile faltered slightly, the cracks in her facade just beginning to show, because the truth has a weight that can't be faked, and I felt a quiet satisfaction swell inside me. Then I moved to the anomalies, the disruptions, the points where files had gone missing, drafts had been deleted, emails rerouted, subtle manipulations that could have cost the company tens of thousands of dollars in lost time and productivity, and I presented them calmly, methodically, like a detective laying out evidence in a courtroom, my voice steady, my gaze unwavering, and as I detailed each manipulation, the room went still, the tension palpable, and Marcus shifted uncomfortably in his seat, a bead of sweat glinting on his temple, because he knew what was coming. I continued, showing email headers, timestamps, screenshots, every tiny piece of proof cataloged in my meticulous notebook, and I could feel the power of truth radiating through me, the kind of strength only comes when you know you've been wronged and you've prepared your response with precision. And I leaned slightly forward, voice strong, and said, "These patterns are too consistent, too calculated to be coincidental. The sabotage was intentional, coordinated, and it's documented here for everyone to see." Thanks for listening. Hit subscribe if this inspired you. 7. The CEO's eyes narrowed slightly, scanning the documents, scanning me, scanning the evidence, and I felt the gravity of the moment pressing down, but instead of fear, I felt exhilaration, because I knew I was in control, and I could see Karen's lips tighten, Marcus's hands clench beneath the table, the room vibrating with tension, silent accusations, and the inevitability of exposure, and I let my voice soften just slightly, almost intimate, and added, "I've documented every irregularity, cross-referenced every file, and the conclusion is clear. The attempt to sabotage this project came from within." Vince, there was a pause, the kind of silence that feels like a heartbeat stretched into eternity, and then Karen's voice trembled slightly. Ayla, but I didn't let her finish, because the point had been made. The truth had been delivered. And now, the power dynamic had shifted completely, the predator becoming prey. And I felt a surge of pride, a rush that coursed through my veins like electricity, because this was more than just a project. It was my moment of triumph over deceit, a testament to resilience, intelligence, and the integrity that my mother had instilled in me. I closed my folder with deliberate calm, looking around the room, meeting eyes with the CEO, Karen, Marcus, and the junior team who had been silently watching, and I said softly but firmly, I won't let anyone undermine my work or the team. The results speak for themselves, and accountability is non-negotiable. The CEO nodded slowly, a subtle acknowledgement that weighed heavier than any applause, and I could see the relief in some faces, the discomfort in others, and the stunned realization in Karen and Marcus that their plan had failed spectacularly, undone not by luck, not by coincidence, but by preparation, vigilance, and relentless determination. Karen opened her mouth again, hesitating, faltering, and Marcus shifted in his chair, finally speaking, voice strained. We didn't realize the files, but I didn't let them finish. I held the room with my presence, calm and commanding, and added, intentions don't matter when actions have consequences. I've done the work. I've documented everything, and the results are clear. Integrity wins. Evans. The room was heavy with tension, the kind that sticks to your skin, but in that pressure, I felt clarity, the kind that only comes when you've turned every betrayal into evidence, every challenge into strategy, and every doubt into proof. And I whispered under my breath, almost to myself, this is for my mother. This is for every woman who's been underestimated. This is for me. Sevens. The CEO finally spoke, his voice carrying authority and finality. Ayla, your work is exceptional, your diligence unmatched. The evidence is clear. The promotion is yours. The words hit me like a wave, a rush of triumph so profound it nearly took my breath away, and I felt tears prick at the corners of my eyes, not from relief alone, but from the weight of validation, from the acknowledgement that all the struggle, all the planning, all the vigilance had led to this, and in that moment, I felt my mother's presence, her pride, her unwavering belief in me, and I whispered softly, we did it, Mom. We did it. Sevens. Karen and Marcus sat frozen, their expressions a mixture of shock, shame, and disbelief, and I felt a quiet satisfaction, tempered by grace, because the point wasn't humiliation, it was justice, it was truth, it was standing tall when others tried to pull you down, and as I gathered my things, ready to leave the room, I glanced at the junior team who had watched silently, offering a small, encouraging smile, and I knew I had not only won a promotion, but I had shown them what integrity, strategy, and determination look like in action. And as I stepped out into the bright New York sunlight, the city buzzing around me, I felt invincible, unstoppable, triumphant. And I knew that this was only the beginning of everything I was capable of achieving. I didn't expect the aftermath to hit me the way it did. The office, once a battlefield of whispers and sideways glances, now felt strange, almost hollow, as if the walls themselves were catching their breath, waiting for something else to happen. And yet, I could feel it, the subtle shifts, the tension, the unspoken acknowledgement from everyone that things had changed forever, that the scales had tipped, and it was my turn to stand tall, chest high, eyes forward, because today, justice didn't whisper, it roared. I walked past Karen first, her usual confident stride faltering under the weight of defeat, and I could see the panic flaring in her eyes, that tiny, human crack in her carefully built armor, and I let a small, controlled smile tug at my lips, because I knew she understood without me having to say a word. I had seen through her, exposed her, and yet I didn't need to gloat. Power was in presence, and mine had never been sharper. Marcus was next, attempting casual chatter as if nothing had happened. "Hey, Ayla," about yesterday. But I didn't break my rhythm, didn't acknowledge the tremor in his voice, and simply said, calm but piercing, "About yesterday? Everything's clear now. Let's move forward professionally." The words were like a blade sheathed in silk, precise, controlled, undeniable, and I could see him swallow hard, the defeat washing over him in silence, and that silent acknowledgement, that unspoken, wordless concession, was sweeter than any celebration I could have demanded, because victory like this doesn't need applause. It's internal, visceral, electric. I settled into my new office, the sunlight catching on the polished surface of the desk, the skyline of New York stretching endlessly beyond the window, and for the first time in weeks, I let myself breathe, slow and deliberate, chest rising and falling as the reality settled in. Promotion secured, project results intact, sabotage exposed, respect earned. The numbers glimmered in my mind. 432 new leads, 43% engagement increase, 21% conversion improvement, facts that couldn't be argued with, results that spoke louder than gossip or lies, proof that dedication, intellect and heart had triumphed over deceit. Just as I was settling in, the first va-chom hit. The HR manager, usually distant, slid a document across my desk, her voice low, cautious. "Ayla, some of the staff have questions about yesterday. They want clarification." I looked down at the folder, and inside were complaints from Karen and Marcus, attempts to twist the narrative, subtle accusations masked as concern. But I had anticipated this. I leaned back, fingers laced, and calmly responded, "The evidence speaks for itself. Everything is transparent. The facts are in the numbers, in the documentation. That's all anyone needs." The HR manager nodded, relief flickering in her eyes, because she knew I had handled this with precision, authority, and integrity. And in that moment, I realized how much power could come from preparation, strategy, and confidence. The second va-chom came in the form of a direct confrontation from Karen, who approached my desk just as I was reviewing quarterly projections. Her voice was low, a mixture of anger and disbelief. "Ayla, I don't understand how you—" But I stopped her with a steady gaze, not flinching, not wavering, and said, "You tried to undermine the project, manipulate the results, and sabotage the team. The numbers, the emails, the timelines, they all tell the story. There's nothing to misunderstand." Her shoulders slumped slightly, frustration and shame battling on her face, and for a moment, I allowed myself to feel the full weight of justice, the satisfaction that comes from being proven right, being recognized for intelligence and effort, being acknowledged for integrity. Thanks for taking the time to listen to this story. If it spoke to you, hit subscribe and stay tuned for more stories that inspire and empower. The third va-chom was subtler, almost invisible, but electric. The whispering in the hallways, the stolen glances, the hesitant questions from team members who had once doubted me, now approaching with cautious admiration. I overheard someone say, "I didn't think she could pull it off," but she did. And I allowed myself a private, almost imperceptible smile, because this quiet acknowledgement was the deepest validation of all. I had shifted perception, turned skepticism into respect, and done it with grace, power, and intelligence. And then, the moment I had been waiting for, the emotional climax, the call to my mother. I stepped into my office, phone in hand, trembling slightly, heart pounding in a way that was no longer fear, but pure, unfiltered triumph. And I dialed her number, waiting as it rang twice, 3 times, before I heard her voice, soft, warm, proud. "Ayla, my baby girl, what happened?" I took a deep breath, trying to steady the tears that threatened to fall, and I said, voice rich with emotion, "Mom, I did it. They tried to steal everything from me, sabotage the project, ruin the promotion, but I outsmarted them. I won. I'm going to the top." She gasped softly on the other end, her voice trembling with joy. "Oh, Ayla, I'm so proud. You've shown them. You've shown everyone. Your strength. Your heart. You are everything I knew you'd be." And in that moment, standing alone in the quiet office, surrounded by sunlight and the hum of the city, I felt the full force of victory, the culmination of strategy, courage, resilience, and love, the triumph not just over deceit, but over doubt, fear, and every obstacle that had tried to hold me back. I looked around the office, at my team, at the skyline stretching endlessly beyond the glass, and whispered softly, almost to myself, they thought they could break me. They thought I would crumble. But I stood firm. I stayed smart. I stayed true. And today, we win. Tears blurred my vision, but they were tears of triumph, pride, and profound connection to my mother, to my heritage, to the culture that had raised me with strength, dignity, and heart. And I realized that this wasn't just my victory. It was a victory for every woman who had ever been underestimated, for every Black woman who had been told she wasn't enough, for every person who had been doubted or overlooked, because standing up, being smart, and staying true to yourself is the most powerful statement you can make. As the day drew to a close, the office buzzing quietly with hushed acknowledgement, my promotion official, my project vindicated, I allowed myself one last private moment, standing by the window, the New York skyline glowing golden in the late afternoon, sunlight catching on my hair, and I whispered to the universe, to my mother, to myself, "We did it, Mom. Every step, every struggle, every sleepless night, it was worth it. And I promise, I will keep standing tall, leading with heart, and proving that integrity always wins." And in that moment, I felt complete, whole, unstoppable, the culmination of fire, strategy, heart, and heritage, a living testament to the power of truth, resilience, and unapologetic ambition. Sitting here, looking out at the New York skyline, I realize this story isn't just about a promotion or winning a corporate battle. It's about resilience, integrity, and believing in your worth when the world tries to define it for you. They tried to sabotage me, doubt me, and undermine my efforts, but preparation, focus, and heart turned betrayal into victory. Every email traced, every file documented, every late-night strategizing wasn't just work. It was proof that intelligence paired with determination is unstoppable. I learned the power of patience, observation, and timing. Reacting too early can ruin you, but watching, listening, and acting decisively with evidence shifts the balance of power. Integrity matters more than shortcuts. It commands respect, earns trust, and delivers victories that no one can take away. Standing firm, documenting the truth, And facing the saboteurs with calm authority turned fear and doubt into undeniable proof of my worth. Heritage and family grounded me. My mother's words, "Prove your value with your mind and your heart," guided me through every moment of fear and challenge. My triumph wasn't just mine. It was a victory for every Black woman underestimated, doubted, or dismissed. Showing courage, strategy, and grace in adversity becomes a roadmap for others, a living example of how strength and integrity create impact beyond oneself. Emotion fuels power. Betrayal hurt, doubt gnawed, but I channeled it into focus and action. Tears of triumph, pride, and connection with my culture and family made the victory profound and lasting. So here's the takeaway. Your worth is unshakable when you act with heart, intelligence, and courage. Stand tall, stay true, prepare relentlessly, and let integrity guide you. Every triumph you claim with honesty not only honors you but uplifts your community, inspires your sisters, and proves that resilience, culture, and truth are unstoppable forces. Your light cannot be dimmed by those who fear it. Shine, always. What do you think about this story? Where are you tuning in from? I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for listening, and let's connect. Don't forget to subscribe for more powerful workplace stories that really hit home.